At Tony's house in his garage, and this is the car that I came out to shoot. Like I said, a few weeks ago, I was at the cruise-in and walking along, stumbling along through the parking lot, and ran into this. Couldn't believe my eyes. It's not. I mean, obviously, it's not one of the 6 originals. It's a clone or reproduction. But Tony, tell me, how long have you had the car?
Purchased the body and a partial frame in around 2001.
Had you always wanted one?
Oh yeah. Always wanted a coupe.
When's the first time you saw one? You remember?
Probably when I was 5 or 6 years old. We lived in Florida. My dad worked at the Cape, and we lived real close to the racetrack at Daytona. And back then, they didn't have covered trailers and big semis. They towed the cars with pickup trucks and open trailers.
Right. And
we were coming home from my grandparents' or one of my cousins' house one night, and we went by this hotel, and it was full of race cars on trailers, open trailers.
Cool.
And so they stopped. I guess a lot of I was too young to know, but I'm sure a lot of the drivers were there.
How old were you think?
I was 5, 6 years old, and I got to get out. I got to get out and climb around on the cars and climb in them. I mean, back then it wasn't off limits like it is these days. And
a lot more accessibility.
Right. And so I got to see the cars, then, and that was either 1964 or 1965. I really can't remember. But ever since then, I've been hooked on Cobras.
Cool.
And so, I went through the whole slot car thing in the 60s, growing up, and I had GT40 slot cars, and I had Daytona Coupe slot cars and things like that. So I've had the bug for a long time.
Now, how long? Now, was it in this condition when you got it?
Oh no, it was just a body, and like I said, 3/4 of a frame. Basically, this is a complete. Gosh, what would you call it? I forget the kind of build it is. I mean, it's a scratch build.
Right.
There is no kit, no complete kit. I mean, basically, we started with just a hull, a body hull, and a frame, and all the other pieces and things that you see on it, we pretty much fabricated. If I couldn't fabricate them, I had them made. So
now, what is this body made of?
This is a fiberglass body.
Okay. And the original ones, was they made of aluminum?
They were aluminum. The original cars were aluminum.
Now, you've had talked to some people, or some people that have actually driven the real one, has seen this car.
Right. We took this car to the London Cobra Show, which is in Ohio. They have it every year. It's a big charity event. We just got back from there about 3 weeks ago.
Right.
Where they have guests every year, special guests every year, and they try to get some of the old Cobra guys to come. This year, the guests were Bob Bondurant and Alan Grant. And they were both, Alan Grant, he had an interesting career with Shelby. He was a mechanic on the GT40 program.
Oh, cool.
But he raced the coupes. And he got his racing experience just out of high school. He happened to be next door neighbors and best friends with, who's the Star Wars guy?
Oh, no, you just caught me. Lucas?
George Lucas.
George Lucas.
Okay? And if you'll go back and look in some old Cobra books, you'll see a bright yellow Cobra called the Executor. I think it was number 98. Alan owned that car. It was sponsored by a company called Coventry Motors. And George Lucas developed the paint scheme on that car. It was bright yellow with black stripes. But him and Lucas are still best friends.
Wow.
In fact, when I was out there, he told me, he says, "Do you ever come to California?" And I said, "Well, I do occasionally. It's mainly work related." He said, "Next time you're out there," he said, "we'll go to Lucas's house and look at some of his cars. He's got some cool stuff."
Well, let's go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to California now. Yeah, right.
So he was there, and like I said, he wrenched on the GT40s, and he was a driver for the coupes. Bob Bondurant, of course, was the lead driver.
Right.
Him and Gurney were the two lead drivers for the coupe. And they both, I've got pictures, and they autographed the car. I've got pictures of them with the car. I've got some autographed pictures of them with the car. In fact, you can...
They autographed the car.
Yeah, they autographed the car itself. You can go to a couple of different club sites. You can go to the Kentucky Cobra Club site, you can go to the Ohio Cobra Club site, and there's a lot of pictures of them in the car and me in the car. In fact, there's a video on YouTube.
Right.
If you just search my name and Daytona Coupe on YouTube, it'll pop up. It's a real short video of Bob and his wife and him getting in the car and talking about.
What do you think of the car?
He actually said it was the best replica, the closest thing to the real car that he had ever seen. In fact, he made a comment, and I couldn't tell if it was tongue in cheek. He said, "Would you guys build me a car?"
Right.
You know, of course, none of us do this full time.
Right,
so.
right. No, you don't want to put the 7 years that it took you to do yours into his.
So.
It's got the spare tire back there, just like it would have had.
That was the rules. The rules said you had to run it. I mean, it didn't have to work. It didn't have to have air in it.
Right.
They had some crazy rules back then, the FIA. The roadster cars had to be able to carry a suitcase of a certain size. The GT40s and the coupes had to carry a spare tire.
No
it
kidding.
was just a rule. Yeah.
Now, is that gas cap? That's how it was?
That's how the gas caps work. And I've read that those gas caps were originally discovered. I mean, it's a quick cap, you know, so it can be open real. And it can handle a lot of fuel because it's got such a wide mouth on it. And I read or heard that these caps, they discovered these caps were on the double-decker buses in Great Britain.
Wow.
And so one of the books that I ordered a lot of parts out of building the coupe was an airplane restoration book. Because back then, in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, they didn't have performance. They didn't have race car catalogs.
Right.
You know, you could buy performance parts from the manufacturers, but they bought a lot of their parts. A lot of the parts on these cars were aircraft parts. The switches, the lights, the controls, because they were more equipped for that environment than regular car stuff.
Yeah, they were beefed up.
So there's a company that I buy a lot of stuff from, and it's an airplane parts place.
Right. They make stuff for yourself.
A lot of these fasteners.
Right.
A lot of the fasteners you see are aircraft.
That's actually how it's held in. It's not fake. That's just screwed in like that. How long are those screws?
They go through a metal frame.
Right.
They go through a metal frame, and that's a recessed flat washer like they would use on the skin of an old airplane. Cuts down on the drag.
Now that spoiler, they had a couple different spoilers. That spoiler is what type of spoiler?
This was short track spoiler, and I say short track to the Europeans. Daytona was a short track.
Right.
Okay? Where you run the courses that they ran in Europe, especially back then, the Nürburgring and things like that. Some of those tracks, it was like 14 miles.
Well, yeah, I know.
Around the track.
Yeah.
They're much shorter these days but back then they were real long tracks. So and Le Mans, of course, had real back then. Le Mans had the straightaways were 2 or 3 times the length they are now. You know, cars have gotten so fast now they've had to put chicanes and bus stops and that sort of thing to slow them down. Back then, the coupe was the first car to run 200 miles an hour down the Moose on Straight. And then the next year, the big block GT40 showed up and ran like 240 or 250. So in 1 year,
big jump.
They jumped 50 or 60 miles an hour. You know.
Wow.
But the Le Mans spoiler is about 3 inches wider on both sides, just a little wider to give it a little more downforce.
What is that hook for?
Oh, that's how you raise the.
Oh, yeah. I guess it makes sense that it comes open. Yeah, I never thought of that. Look at that. That's beautiful. And you laid all that interior out just like it was back in the day.
Just like it was in the day.
And I'm guessing even the labels you went.
Use the old. Yeah. I had to order one of those off eBay because you can't find those.
Right.
You know,
and that's what they used.
And that's what they used. Yes. Either that, or they used a white magic marker. That looked better than white magic marker.
And there was actually a 15. That's like I said. That's the one that's in the pictures. So
this car,
very cool.